The problem we've got is they've just had the conversation that we wanted to have over there in private, and they keep going on and on.
We've done about that much of it.
Great. It was really exciting to hear you sort of, just kind of talking and hearing your conversation before with Johnny and Sam, Adrian, and just thinking like this is, I think a really, really exciting start to the day in this kind of context of British popular culture. So thank you both for coming and having this conversation. It means a lot to us to kind of have this day here at the Cornish Bank and then have these kinds of conversations. I assume you know who Mark is. This is Mark and Adrian, who we've already met. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm just going to let you guys have a conversation because I think Mark and I sort of said there was a lot in that first talk that felt very, very relatable to you and your practice and your sort of your processes. So I really want to hear you talk about that together. But I wanted to sort of start by thinking about sound in your formative experiences of it. Like what were those early kind of pop culture sounds that really struck you from a particularly British context? And then where did you hear them? Like what was the medium that you heard them? Was it radio or film or television?
Thank you.
Well, I think probably the starting point for me was pop music, but it was 60s pop music. So early Beatles stuff was a big thing for me. I think my mum had a record player that she'd stopped using because she'd probably got a tape player, and the record player had been abandoned, and I set it up behind the sofa under the stairs in quite a very small house, and I used to listen to the Beatles records under the stairs. It sounds weird now saying it out loud, but it was, and there was it was the first album, and then Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. That was what I thought the Beatles were. I didn't know anything about Revolver, Rubber Soul, Abbey Road, any of that stuff until a lot later. So I think that was those three records was the big introduction for me for sort of pop music, really, and playing records, which I still do now. Never really stopped doing. I mean, there was a little period where I didn't listen to records when I was listening to CDs, but I've never listened to digital music. What the kids call MP3s, is that what everybody's listening to now?
Yeah, that's what they're listening to, yeah.
I haven't got a Spotify account. Don't know how that works. People send me things and I don't listen to it, and then I send them messages back saying that was great, having not listened to it. But yeah, so the physicality of sound is a big thing.
And tapes are a big part of your...
tapes. I saved up one summer to buy a stereo that had a CD player on it, because it blew my mind, the quality of the sound, switching from tape. But yeah, I had a huge tape collection. I've still got a tape collection. We sort of have exchanged cassettes and a shared love of cassettes, because I was kind of, my introduction to listening to music was pre-CD. But then I've still got I'm not one of these people who got rid of their record collection and their CD collection or even their tape collection. So I've got a studio that's full of CDs and cassettes and records. So yeah, the physical nature of sound is really important to me, because I think the thing is with sound is like, where is it? You can't see it. So at least having the thing that it exists on as a tangible thing is very important for me, of my brain, of understanding what sound is. The idea that sound is not able to be seen, plus the actual thing you're playing it off, what the fuck is a 1 and a 0, for Christ's sake, that's very important.
But that's very important to you visually as well, in terms of shooting on film and knowing that it's there on the material.
Yeah, the objects are very important. So my sound work now is all done on tape.
Adrian?
My earliest musical things.
Early sort of, pop culture sounds and where they sort of came to you.
I guess not dissimilar actually. The Beatles. I'm older than Mark, I think. Well, I certainly am. So it was a different era. My dad was really into music, so a lot of jazz, a lot of John Coltrane, Miles Davis. didn't really understand that then, but I think some of the music that I heard that time that has informed my entire life is, like I said earlier, that, you know, Abbey Road and the sonic aspect of that. And I remember, you know, like jukeboxes, the fucking magical sound of jukeboxes, the amount of low end that came out of them, and the 45 succinct track like Paranoid by Black Sabbath, or the B-side, which was The Wizard, I think it was, you know, with harmonica on it, and heavy sound, and in some shitty cafe somewhere, you know, when I was young, and that remains with me, you know. I still collect 45s in the hope that one day I will have a jukebox. Who knows if I ever will, but I've got the records if I ever do. So, you know, things like, and I've actually started collecting over the last 20 years records that meant something to me, like Virginia Plain, and not any other Roxy Music stuff, just that. And because, you know, what Eno was doing with a VCS3 and a Mini Moog in the middle of that, I didn't even know that's what it was, but at the time it's like really important sound to me. I remember where I first heard Virginia Plain and that bit in the middle. What is that? And it kind of, in my brain, it connected to Abbey Road because of the synths involved in it. Like I said earlier, Jimi Hendrix's Star Spangled Banner, and his sonic world was really important to me. And growing up as a, you know, in an open plan house with Coltrane playing and bossa novas in the 60s, you know, Stan Getz and like Girl from Ipanema and stuff like that. God, I don't know, I could go on forever about it, really. And I like the physicality of music. I do have streaming because it really irritates the hell out of me, but because I would do exactly that, thanks for sending me it, it was awesome, I didn't listen to it, you know, there was a lot of that, and then I decided I ought to actually listen to and get an account. All my kids have got it, so although I completely disagree, I use Tidal, not Spotify, don't know whether it's any better, but I like the physical, you know, a cassette, a tape, a record, a CD, I don't mind CDs.
Very early on today, you mentioned the Ipcris file in terms of things like that. So, what are the other kind of sound influences or score influences that, you know, and where did that come from, and you know, what those earliest sort of things that have stuck with you that sort of, you know, repeated throughout your work?
Well, for me, they definitely have. I remember French Connection and the sound of that film, Ipcris file, sound of that film. Doctor Who, when I was a kid, scared the hell out of me, you know. I was behind the sofa listening to that. Forbidden Planet, you know, sci-fi films, lots of 70s films with great soundtracks, you know, like Easy Rider, you know, huge, brilliant film, both visually and sonically for me. Many things.
Yeah, I think Doctor Who, big, that piece of music. I mean, it's almost a cliche, isn't it? That just that the Delia Derby, the now credited Delia Derbyshire production on that, and I always really loved, and I know it's much derided, but the Do They Know It's Christmas? Right, but and then I realised quite recently, somebody pointed out that there's the section in the middle of Do They Know It's Christmas is the theme tune from Doctor Who, done in the same. It's exactly the same
Right,
melody, and it sounds like the same bit of production. What is it? Yeah, the middle eight of Doctor Who. And so that then I thought, I was right about Do They Know It's Christmas? You know, as right as the other 20 million people who bought the record. But I wasn't really into film soundtracks at all, because I didn't like the idea of separating the music from the film. It was just one thing. So for me, I would never be somebody who listened to a film soundtrack. Now with my connection with Invader Records, I get sent film soundtracks all the time. I'd listen to them all the time. I've got a completely different appreciation. But one I did with one piece that completely changed it was the inspiration for me wanting to do my own music. It was Simon Fisher Turner's score for Derek Jarman's The Garden, which is just an incredible piece of work. And it's, in some ways, it's kind of bigger than the film. It's more visual than the film is in some ways. And what's brilliant about it is that The Garden's largely shot on Super 8, and at the time, as it is now, Super 8 was a silent format. Sound recording on Super 8 had gone away. So Jarman shot that film, and so it was silent. So everything in that film started from scratch. And Simon Fisher Turner was heavily involved in all of the sound, not just the music. And it creates something that isn't a supplement to the sound that's already on the film. It is the sound of the film, which is how I work now. So that was a big influence for me. And I knew the film The Garden, then I was in Tower Records in Piccadilly Circus when I was about 16 or something. I got up to see my sister who lived in London, and I found it for 99p, the cassette, in a bargain basket, because they just didn't realise what they had. And I bought it on tape, and then a few years ago I found it on Discogs, the vinyl of it. So it's one of those things that I only own in an analogue. So, I never had it on the CD. I doubt if it ever came out on CD. But that was a big thing for me. And also, other end of the spectrum, I own 2 vinyl copies of the original soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Easily found in charity shops.
Tell me where, because I will buy them all up.
Maybe they've disappeared now, but when I used to be looking through records in charity shops, there were many of that. And it's because it had Aquarius on it that it had a.
No, it's not Aquarius. That's
not on it.
no.
Something else.
What's Aquarius from? Hair. From Hair.
Hair.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I've got Hair as well.
No, I'm thinking about Hair.
The record.
I'm thinking about Hair.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I've got Jesus Christ Superstar, a copy at the studio, and one at home.
Right.
And my studio and the house are only a kilometre apart, but it means that wherever I am, I've always got a copy of Jesus Christ Superstar that I can put on. I was going to say in emergencies, but it doesn't even take an emergency for me to want to listen to that. I think because it's probably I think that's the greatest record ever made.
I'm going to have to revisit that then, and not Hair.
Yeah. You never look back.
Right. Good.
That's a rabbit hole we could go down.
You don't want to, though, do you?
No, I don't. So, just before we sort of like open up about the processes that you both sort of employ and those sort of commonalities, just interested, you mentioned sort of, Doctor Who, but, one of the things that's been talked about the radiophonic workshop is the equipment and what was used and how they used it. There's a very kind of, that seems to be becoming much more of as much of the discussion as rightfully Delia's work. Are you drawn to particular equipment because of its associations with certain sounds that you've heard? Is there a kind of desire to learn how it works, or to kind of to re-employ those things? Are you drawn to equipment for those kinds of reasons because of that sort of formative appreciation?
Well, when I started making music with a synthesizer, it was because I was making a film and I was in the edit, and I'd been hand processing film negative for months. And I was beginning to go a bit insane, was certainly a bit anxious and possibly in a state of a bit of depression. And I said to a friend of mine, Gwenno, who was just putting out her first Cornish language album, and we were chatting and she mentioned this little Korg Volca Keys synthesizer. And she said she was just messing around with it and having loads of fun with it. And I looked it up, it was like 100 quid, and I thought, I'm going to get that just to play a little bit of music as a distraction from the film and to do something else that was creative. And ended up trying to make the same sound out of it that Eno had created for Discrete Music, which was the album that I was listening to a lot, because I'd read that David Bowie, when he had his nervous breakdown, had listened to Discrete Music for 3 months without a break, and it had got him out of his funk. So I thought, well, and I on the back of the Discrete Music record, there's a diagram of how he made that sound using a tape loop, and I thought, that sounds too complicated, and started playing around with this keyboard, this synthesizer, and I didn't have a clue how it worked, but I knew it was sort of like, it was analog, so I was interested in that, and I ended up what I ended up doing was, rather than escaping from the film, I ended up accidentally creating the sounds that became the score for the film that I was trying to escape from. So I still don't understand how the synthesizer works. I've now got not a band, but myself and a musician called Dion Starr. We've got a group called the Cornish Sound Unit, and we do music in inverted commas. He does music, and I remember, he turned up and he built his own modular synthesizer and stuff like this, and I was going, yeah, I play synths, as well. And then when he left, I then Googled what an oscillator was, and an envelope and stuff like that. And I've forgotten what those things are again now. I should have Googled them before I came here, so I sound like I knew what I was talking about. So no, I never had any interest in the equipment other than what I could afford and what I thought I could possibly understand. And I bought an MS-20.
Yeah.
The little 3/4.
Yeah, very cool.
I did the score for my film Enys on that. No idea how that works.
That's a good way to work, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
So yeah, but my main interest was, I think I sort of went the kind of the King Tubby route, and kind of was interested in the electrical equipment rather than the music generating stuff. So I love dub, and I use a tape loop a lot of the time to try and create that kind of sound. So I own 3 reel-to-reel Ewers, which is sort of the cheap East German,
Nagras.
Alternative to the Nagra,
Yeah.
which is what I learnt to do sound on when I was at college. And there was a few years ago when they were on eBay, and you could buy 10 of them for about 50 quid. And now they're very expensive again because they're rarer. But I use a tape loop, and I found out the other day I've been doing it incorrectly for
Fair enough.
for 3 albums.
Yeah.
For a free soundtrack, and I set it up correctly the other day.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah,
Awful.
That's the problem. That is the problem, I think.
It did because the tape loop, the way I use a tape loop, that it's like I have to sort of set the levels like a safe breaker. It's like a fraction.
Yeah.
There's like in all of these dials, there's like a millimeter
Yeah.
where it works.
Yeah.
And if you're a millimeter off one way, you can't hear anything. And if you're a millimeter off the other way, within 15 seconds, the windows have blown out of the studio.
Yeah.
So, and it was too controllable. So I always think my tape loop's like this wild animal that I switch on, and sometimes I switch on and it's really pissed off, and I can tell straight away. It starts like surging, and at other days it's just really knackered and it won't do anything. And I set up the right way, and it was just too. It was almost like I had a loop pedal, which I didn't.
Not so interesting.
I didn't want that. No.
Yeah. I think my relationship with. I can't remember your original question, actually.
No, go just, yeah.
I've collected a lot of gear over the years, and actually I like with my guitar playing, I taught myself to read music. I know about harmony and theory, not an enormous amount, but well and truly enough to get me through what I need to do. And then I've totally discarded it. The same with learning to record properly, or use synthesizers. Sometimes patching up a modular in the conventional way is really uninteresting. You do it, all the wires in, oh yes, it's going to be cool, it's that. And it's really you're back on something not so interesting. So, same with composition. I'm really interested in, like with the radiophonic workshop where you started, those people were experimenting and they were using gear that they could scrounge off other people. They didn't have the latest technology. They had the old tape machines that people didn't want to use anymore, bits of old test equipment, oscillators, the Stockhausen and people like that had innovatively used back in the day. And they were looking for something other than the conventional, like the Doctor Who theme was written by a composer, Granger or something, and then that person, and Delia took it and made it into what it was, you know, with a tape loop going out into the corridor and back out, you know, and then created this incredible thing that scared the shit out of all of us as kids when we were in the 60s, you know. And so, you know, and the same with composition. I have friends who are amazingly quick at composing music, like really beautiful, and I made a record with a friend of mine recently, and I thought, this is incredible, orchestral. How do you know how to do this? You know, I've never been able to do that. So my method would be, I have different alternative techniques of coincidental music happening, which can happen with tape loops or like the Steve Reich thing of tapes going out of phase with each other. I'm really interested in what happens. I was commissioned a few years ago to make some music for some hot air balloons. We were talking about these earlier. It's a Bristol thing. They were going to go out at 5 or 6 in the morning, these balloons, it was an artist, Luke Jerram or somebody like that, was putting it together. And every balloon had a sound system in it with a piece of music that was written in a certain tonality by different people. And I love the idea that these balloons would float out over the city and you can't control them, so they coincidentally would, these two are together and they're making this because they're in the same key, kind of. And I love that coincidental set up a process and then see what happens. I often use alphabet and notes to write music, like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, you know, and then write a word, like I did a thing for Colston Hall in Bristol, and I used slavery, exploitation and stuff like that. Found out what notes that might be, and that was a starting point for writing music for me. And then I might reverse those things, and sometimes they don't work, they're dissonant, and I like that, or I don't like it, I can change it. So I'm not explaining it very well, but it's a process of making music that isn't tonal in the way that we all, you know, that my friends write sometimes.
Yeah. And you mentioned sort of incorrectly, and you know, what is correct? You know, a lot of the stuff that
correct's what you like, isn't it?
Yeah. And what resonates with people. Yeah.
I never know what. I've never got a starting point. So the score that I've just done, I played the chords from Pale Blue Eyes by Velvet Underground, which I really like, and I played them on the guitar, and I can't play the guitar very well, and then I played them into a pedal chain and then into the tape loop, and that's the score. It's come out something nobody would ever trace it. Well, they will now, but you couldn't trace it back, because I don't know, you know, I know what I like. I know when I like the sound of something, but I can't think, I'm going to play, you know, certain sequence. I can't imagine a sequence of chords or a sequence of notes. So what I do is I think, well, you know, those ones Lou Reed did were pretty good. Yeah. That would be a good starting point. Yeah. And then, I always have to invent a starting point, which is kind of like, it's almost like structuralism, isn't it? You set a structure, like, you know, taking those words that you were just saying, and then, you don't know where it goes off from there. You know?
I would know chords, which is just super irritating, because they are like, it's that again. So I need to find a vehicle that isn't, you know, just boring to me. So that's why I would do that. And I think that actually not knowing certain things, and there's plenty of things I don't know, that I revel in the joy of not knowing about them. You know, they're often their best. They're often the best thing. It's like painting and not really knowing how to mix a green colour. Yeah. And you end up with something you might like or you might hate it, but at least you're getting there, aren't you?
It's kind of I think not knowing what you're doing is quite it's in one way it's justifying the way I work. But so when I came, because I lived in London for 3 years, and when I moved, and I was working in the film industry up there, cutting film trailers and working in adverts and stuff, and I remember coming back to Cornwall in 2001 for a film screening, and there was a group called CMR, the Cornwall Media Resource, which was a bunch of people who wanted to make films, and it was just when equipment was getting cheap enough to use. So there's digital cameras and there was computer editing, but it was all these people making films who didn't know what they were doing. And I'd come down from Soho, you know, working at the cutting edge of the industry, and went to a film screening in a village hall in St Kevin and watched these films and came out. And I remember going back to London and going, I've just watched some of the weirdest shit I've ever seen. People in Cornwall don't know what they're doing. They're not making films the way films should be made. And then a few weeks later, I kind of looked around at what I was making and thought, and I was working in advertising and film marketing. And I thought, no, I'm making utter shit. And everybody I know is making utter shit, because it's all derivative and it's all following fashion, and it's not fashion, you know, the fashion of filmmaking, and it was all done in a way, everybody had been taught a way to do it, and it was like this, we're in a cul-de-sac, whereas in Cornwall, this batshit crazy stuff is flying off in every single direction because nobody knows what they're doing. And then, you know, and 6 months later I moved back and never left. And that was through, you know, people just not knowing the way things should be done.
It's totally parallel with music in Bristol, as far as I remember it, you know, all of us getting samplers for the first time, a bit of technology, and then just going off doing mad things. And I was recently talking with some people in another drum and bass genre from back in the day, you know, and they found the same world, but with different bits of equipment and a different way of doing it. But actually, it was so similar in many ways of discarding what had come before and what the norm was, you know. And it's nice to have a community. I don't really. It's nice to have a community of those people where you're all on that same journey, you know, and not the ad agency world. I mean, that's the session world that I was in, you know, playing. You know, before Portishead, I was playing with Jeff Beck, and all of those people around him were like, "This is how it's done," and that all the time I was thinking, "No, it fucking isn't. No. That's not. That drum sounds terrible to me."
Well, it's good because you need people like you who think that and act upon it. Because a lot of people, it crushes a lot of people and go, "Well, like, if that's the way it's supposed to be done, I'm never going to be able to do it that way." So, well. You know, it's the reason I still I've been playing the guitar. I started playing the guitar when I was 10, and I'm no better than when I was 10. And listening to you earlier, I've thought, well, that makes me the greatest guitarist of all time.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
We went, me and Mary, my partner who's here, we went to see Alex Nielsen, Trembling Bells, and Alex Rex play in the church last year sometime. And as a drummer and as a singer and songwriter, I just think he's an absolute genius. And he's always reinventing himself. And he was the singing drummer from Trembling Bells. And I always thought he was the drummer from Trembling Bells who sang the odd song. But then as I got to know him, I realised it was his band. He'd put it together, but he was running the whole thing from the back. So we turned up at the church to see him play. And I thought, this is going to be interesting watching him, you know, sing and play the drums in a church. I don't know whether I've seen this before. And he got out an acoustic guitar. I thought, I didn't know he played the guitar. And then he started playing in this way that was just like, this is quite interesting. And then all of his songs were informed by the way he was playing the guitar. And then he said, I've been playing the guitar for 6 weeks or something, he said. And he'd gone on tour.
Awesome.
And he's in a guitar class with a bunch of kids who are all like under 10, and him, who's this guy in his 40s. So it's sort of, you can see he's kind of used to playing with like 5 of them all playing the chords, and then he would look, you know, you could see when there was a chord change coming, because he'd look down at his hand 10 seconds before the change was coming. But the music is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But he's I don't know whether he might. Hopefully he wouldn't mind me saying he's quite contrarian in his personality. So I think he would think that was, you know, I'm not interested in playing the way that I'm supposed to play. You know, I want to go on tour. I haven't got time to learn like that, so I'll play and write. And he's got this amazing back catalogue, but he played all new songs.
Yeah.
But were based around the way that he could play the guitar, and it was just like, this guy is, you know, wasn't enough people there. That, you know, everybody should have been there, because this guy is an absolute, he's essential, this bloke.
I think those people are really important in the world. I was thinking about just now about, you know, technique and lack of technique, and it takes somebody like Glenn Gould, the pianist who plays Bach so utterly beautifully, and was very unconventional in his day and came up against a lot of criticism, although he's absolutely phenomenal technique and musicality from a very young age. And I think I gravitate towards him because of his slight imperfections and the way he doesn't do it, how it's supposed to be done. What is it? How is it supposed to be done? Can you go back and talk to Bach from all those hundreds of years ago? How do you know what he's wanted? Yeah. Does it matter? You know, is it this music's actually moving me? It's talking to me. Very particular about which piano he played and had imperfections, you know. Yeah. So on a very high level of technique, for me, Glenn Gould is the same as listening to Mark Ribot or something like that, you know, or your mate only who's learned for 6 weeks, you know. Yeah. It's an honesty of, you know, obviously if you're going to play Bach, you've got to have some technique, you know, but then I've heard it so many times, so many of those exclusive classical music concerts that exclude us with such incredible technique and really not much feeling, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff is the feeling, and it's moved the needle of what's popular through that, you know, like kind of eventually or oftentimes we, as audiences or whatever, we kind of gravitate towards that thing, and then that thing becomes popular, you know, those sort of sounds across time. Like the Beatles are the prime example of, like, they were doing something so radical. The Beatles,
yeah.
You know, but that kind of ethos is shared, like people doing those interesting things, weird things at the time. Sometimes it's like, what is this? But it sticks, and then that moves what we think of it as popular towards that.
And I think sometimes you don't know whether you like it or not to start with, partly because it's new, also because it's imperfect, and kind of, you know, sort of programmed a little bit to be critical of it. Like we were talking about Darren Hayman earlier, and his band Hefner, and there's a great track, I don't know whether it's off the first album, called Tactile, which is this beautiful love song where he just plays the piano and sings, and the piano playing is sparse, the singing, his voice is breaking and drifting in and out a little bit, but it's heartbreaking song. You listen to it and think, oh, it would be really great to hear like a well-recorded, well-performed version of that song. And actually it would lose, I'm stating the obvious, it would just lose absolutely everything, because it loses the human. And I imagine it was a demo, and he recorded it, and it might have taken somebody else to say to him, don't re-record it, that's the one. You know?
We were talking about this earlier, weren't we, about our work, and knowing when it's done and when it's good. It's really hard to know, and there's a sense that the first thing you do, did you say Ginsberg said first thought, best thought?
Yeah.
And that's a mantra for me, even though I don't actually follow it all the time.
It's difficult.
It's very difficult, because you think you can do better, but actually, on many occasions, the first recording of the thing, whatever it is probably the best one.
Well, I think it's because the first thought you have is not a thought, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And the idea is that we've got two brains, which, you know, you've got your gut and your brain, and the gut is the one you trust, because that brain's a prick.
Yeah, it's going to mess with everything.
That screws everything up.
Yeah,
and actually,
totally
if you just go with your first brain, which is your gut instinct, the problem with things but I find, like I recorded a piece of score for my latest feature film, and I recorded a guitar demo for it, which was laid in, and when we were pre-mixing it, nobody had heard it. Then we went into the pre-mix, and there was other people in the room, and I was apologising for it, saying, this is temporary, you know. And actually, I did really like it, else I wouldn't have laid it into the film. But when other people were hearing it, I suddenly became aware that I can't play the guitar very well, so I had to apologise for it.
But that was your feeling.
Yeah, but that's my brain telling me, saying,
this isn't good.
You're not very good. You're not very good. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Tell these people you're an idiot. Make excuses for yourself. Whereas my gut was going, it's fine. And in the end, I did. As I was saying to you earlier, I re-recorded it because I wanted it on a slightly different guitar. But I played it just as badly and recorded it just as badly and put it back in, and it's there in all its terrible glory as it was meant to be.
Yeah, I think that's important to do that, and also often it takes somebody else to, like you said, to say to you, no, that's all right.
Yeah,
it's okay. Don't redo it. I've done it so many times. Recorded something, and then thought, no, that was a good idea. Okay, I'll do it properly later.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean, do it properly? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think you have this thing hanging over you, going, you got to re-record it. And then you re-record it, and you're never happy with it.
Yeah.
I think is like, you could do that again. You could do that again. Actually, what you need to do is step away from it, and then come back to it and listen to it, and in that gap, it improves.
Yeah.
Despite not changing, it does. You look at it, you'll hear it in a different way.
Yeah, that's like the catalogue that we were talking about earlier on, where I lose stuff all the time. You had an interesting process about that, I think, which is good. But I'll go back and listen to something, like I'll find a file and I go, what was that? What is that? And then listen to it and go, that was all right. Why did I not? Well, I'd forgotten about it, but I must have discarded it.
Yeah. It also goes the other way as well. Sometimes I'll think I've recorded something great and I listen back to it.
Terrible.
Oh, that was shit.
Yeah, that's why I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Is that part of it as well, when you're sort of saying like that, leaving it alone, your sort of process of putting it to tape and then you're done, and then sort of your process, you not wanting to go backwards, like you're just having to step away from something at a certain time, because otherwise there is that head part, or the tinkering part, or the nervousness, insecurity part.
For me, it's completely idleness very often, not wanting to have to go, oh God, I'm going to have to go back and listen to all this stuff. I just want to, no, I'm going to make some more stuff, Can't somebody else sort that out for me? Have a listen, tell me what you think's good out of that lot, That is a massive help for me.
That sounds collaborative as well, in terms of like...
Yeah, I like collaboration. I think my best work is collaborative. Actually, I really hate sitting around on my own doing stuff. I love it. And when I'm in a collaboration, I think, bollocks, why didn't I do enough prep that I could have brought this to our collective table, I could have, I really want to be on my own and sort this little thing out or develop this idea. But I like collaboration with the right people or the right person. I find it really fruitful.
Yeah, I was going to say about like getting rid of stuff. I think that the great thing about digital technology is that you can create stuff very quickly, but you can also get rid of it very quickly. It's much easier to delete digital stuff than it is physical stuff. So my process is I record everything, I master everything to 1/4 inch tape on my Ewer that's in the best condition is my mastering machine. It has one roll of tape on it, and I will master to that roll of tape, and then it goes digital from there. Then I'll play it into my computer, and then the next time I master to tape, I will just rewind that tape and record over it again, which is based, originally it was based on laziness, that I couldn't be bothered to thread another roll of tape and to archive a roll of tape and to store a roll of tape.
Yeah.
And I've reverse engineered that as my process now, is that I just get rid of stuff because I record over it. And also the tape warms up the more you record on it, I think, and you have ghost sounds on it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll digitize stuff, but then if I don't use it, I'll delete it, because I don't want loads of, because it's even just like naming the file and stuff.
Yeah,
and
no, I have
kind
a
of
problem
cool
with
stuff, and then it'll end up being dates and numbers, and then it's just like, it's just, for me, and then all I see is ones and zeros, and so then I'll get rid of it. But what I might do is, when I play it out from the tape machine, I might play it out into the computer at the 4 different speeds my tape machine can run at. So I'll have 4 different versions of it.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I might EQ it slightly on the desk differently as it's going in. So from one master tape, I then might have, say, 12 slightly different digital versions.
it's a little bit like a painter painting over something, having a massive canvas and can't be asked to do another canvas, so I'll just go over that one.
Yeah.
And then it's succinct, isn't it? You know, I like that idea. I'm terrified by the digital. I've got hard drives, hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to look back at them.
No, chuck them in the sea.
Yeah, I reckon. It's a good idea, because they aren't. That's exactly what they're no good for anything but that, really.
Because whatever you think is on there, you can recreate, especially if you're not wanting to look backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, well, that thing that I got rid of, without knowing all of the notes and the sounds and everything, you will have the essence of it. You can go, well, I'm going to try and do that again, which is what I've always, my starting point is always looking backwards. I'm always referencing other stuff in an attempt to move forward. So like my first attempt at making music was to try and record discrete music, which was a futile task because Brian Eno had already created discrete music. But because I didn't know how he did it, I tried to do it and came out with something completely different. So
but that's just inspiration, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I wanted to capture the feeling of something.
Yeah, I think